Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. So today we're going to talk about IFRS 13 fair value measurement. Now what is fair value measurement? Before we actually dive into fair value measurement, we have to understand that what are parts that are included in the standard of IFRS 13 fair value measurement. Means that we have to understand that fair value measurement is to define fair value and to establish a framework of measuring fair value. Simply because we have actually studied about fair value measurement in our IS 16 PPE, in our IS 38 intangible asset, in many other in many other standards. However, this guidance of IFRS 13 does not apply to transactions such as IFRS 2, share-based payment, IFRS 16 leases, and then, and also part of IS2 inventories. So therefore, IFRS 13 applies to fair value measurement that are required to be meted by those standards are not scoped by IFRS 13. Okay, so what is IFRS 13? So first of all, to understand IFRS 13, we have to understand the three objectives of studying IFRS 13 fair value measurement, in which that our objective is to first define the fair value. What is fair value itself? We keep on repeating fair value, fair value, fair value. We need to know actually what is fair value. We need to set up a framework in how to calculate those fair value measurements. And lastly, we have to know what do we want to disclose in our financial statements. Now, let's dive right into IFRS 13 fair value measurement. Now, fair value measurement is actually about the exit price. There is the measuring date, the price received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability. So that is two important points right there, in which that we are trying to receive an asset or we are trying to pay to transfer liability. And right now we are trying to find out what is the exit price of doing these two things. That's the most important part, in which that the opposite of fair value measurement is actually historical cost. Historical cost, in which that what was the amount that we paid to get that particular item inside our company. So let's take the basic example. Let's take a car, for instance. We bought a car using the company's name, and using historical costs, we bought it at 10,000, and therefore we depreciate it throughout the year. So that is historical value, in which that is our entry value. So now let's say it costs 100,000 and depreciation of 10 years, straight line method, so 10,000 depreciation. Now that was the entry method. However, fair value measurement, IFRS 13, is the exit method, in which that at every particular date that we are trying to sell, that date is the amount that we are required to pay or the amount that we are getting, the amount that we are receiving. So that is the meaning of fair value measurement, in which that what is the exit price if we were to sell the asset. Okay, so first of all, what is it used to determine? It used to determine the asset and liability. Non-financial asset use, principal, market, and valuation techniques. Those are the four most important things inside this standard. The asset and liability, non-financial asset use, the principal or most advantageous market, which we will dive into sooner, and the valuation techniques. Now, how can we define an asset? A standalone asset or standalone liability, of a group of asset or group of liability. And now the fair value, in which later on we will go into the valuation hierarchy, in which that we try to see, we want to sell, let's say we have one standalone asset of, now let's just take a car. We want to sell the car. And what price we want to sell the car? That's why we want to find the fair value. Now, the group of asset and liabilities, the characteristic here states that it actually means that we cannot sell an asset, a group of asset, at the same price if it has different conditions, different locations, and it has restrictions to sell or restrictions to transfer. Now let's take a very, very basic example of this. A group of asset, let's say we have a group of cars. We are a gigantic business. Let's say we are a big business, and we have a CGU, a bunch of cars, a Mercedes. We have 10 Mercedes. We have 10 BMWs. Now, to sell them, however, to find the fair value of each of those assets actually differs, simply because we cannot. Let's say I have 10 BMWs. I cannot sell all of them with the same price if the conditions are different. If one BMW has been arrived, another BMW has been refurbished, like all those will have different prices. Now, location, for instance, I have a land in Kuala Lumpur and I have a land in Kelantan. So of course the land in Kuala Lumpur will sell much more at a higher price of it because it's a metropolitan area. And now the other characteristic is that does it have restriction to sell or not? Now let's say I have two cars. However, one car the road tax died. The road tax died and the other car the road tax is still alive. I cannot sell two of my asset at the same price. Okay, now let's dive in deeper. So what is principal market? So remember what I said before. We want to define a fair value. In which to defining a fair value, we have to find out the asset and liability based on the characteristics. And now, after we have find out the asset and liability, we have to compare them with the principal market. Now, what is the principal market? The principal market is a market that has the greatest volume of transaction and has the highest level of activity. So, for instance, let's say let's take the stock market or bond market. That's a bit too advanced. Let's take the car market itself. We have a market of buying and selling cars, and we know that this particular car, BMW, sells for X and X and X and amount at this market because there is a car for market. There is an active market. That is the principal market. However, if there is no principal market for our product, for our asset or liability, we have to see to the most advantageous market, means that which market maximizes the amount, the asset that we can sell, and minimizes the amount of liability transfer. For instance, maximizes the amount of if we a phone. Let's just say there is no active market for a phone. However, therefore I can sell my phone in the camera market to people that let's say my phone is no longer working. However, I can sell it for the camera, or I can sell it for a camera, or I can sell it for texting. So I have to look at both markets in which market will actually give me the most amount of money to transfer the asset. So if the camera market actually sells more, I will actually go to the camera market. And here's a few things we have to consider inside our advantages and fair value, in which that our product, in to set the most advantageous market, we have to include transaction costs and transportation costs. For instance, if this house sells at this particular market, we have to pay the transaction cost, in which the legal fees and whatnot. However, when we try to calculate the value, we do not need to add the transaction cost. Okay, let's take one basic example: a house in Kuala Lumpur, property market. So property market, the price of the house is 500,000. However, I have to include while trying to figure out the most advanced market, I have to include the transaction cost of legal fee 5,000. So that means I have to include the price of the house 500,000 plus with the legal fee. However, while trying to determine our fair value, we just need to take the 500,000 itself. We do not need to add any transaction cost. So how can we define a market? In which by these four things: the independence of people, our ability to enter into a transaction, the knowledge, and our willingness. Okay, so this is application to non-financial assets, in which that car, PPA and whatnot is financially feasible. Like the car, we know the price of the car is physically possible. We cannot transfer a house in KL and we sell it to someone in Kelantan and we want to transfer the house. That is physically not possible. So now let's dive into the fair value initial recognition, in which that we always calculate the transaction price as our entry price and the exit price is fair value. However, there are some moments, some indicators when we cannot take the transaction price as our entry price, and these are the four indicators. So first of all is related parties. If we are selling to a related party, that simply means it is not an arm's length transaction. We may or may not selling it at fair value, therefore we cannot take the transaction price as a fair value. Under duress, or the seller is forced. For instance, someone is holding a gun to my head, telling me to sell this house for 20k to sign the agreement to sign 20k. I cannot. That is not the fair value of this house. In which the house may be 500 to 600,000 value. Different unit of accounts and not on principal or most advantageous market. So let's just say we took the phone example just now and we sold it to the SMS market. No, we cannot do that. Okay, so now we jump into the most important part, in which that the fair value hierarchy. So remember how we started about fair value measurement, in which that number one, we're trying to define an asset, in which we have to define the asset or liability. Number two, we have to find out the most principal. We have to find out the principal or the most advantageous market. And after we found out both of them, we have to use something called the valuation technique. The valuation technique, in which that it is called the fair value hierarchy of three things. Of level 1, level 2, level 3. First of all, after we have decided the asset or the liability, and then we have found out the principal or the most advantageous market, we have to use level 1. In which what is level 1? Okay, so level 1 is when we have a quoted price, an active market, and a similar asset. For instance, let's take the property market. The house in Mont Kiara sells for 2 million a unit. Therefore, we take that price and we bought a house next to it. So the price should be around the same, like 2 million per unit. That is for level 1. Observable quarter price, in which that there is a price in the market. Like we go online, we go anywhere, we type it out and we can see a price. We can see a solid price. That is for level 1. For level 2, is where there are no quoted price. However, we can make an assumption based on our asset, based on the asset that's available. So, for instance, there is a quoted price. There is a quoted price. However, there is no active market, and therefore we have to conclude that A plus B equals to C. So let's take a basic example. Let's take that we're trying to sell an antique BMW car of this particular model. People don't buy or sell this model anymore. Therefore, we do not have a fair value comparison. We do not have a market to compare it. We do not have a quoted price. We do not have an active market to see how much is this car selling for. So what we can do at level 2 is that we take a price of an item that is closely related to the item that we're trying to sell, and then we make adjustments. For instance, I have an antique BMW car of X and X and X model. I do not know the price. There is no active market. However, I look and there is an active market for an antique car, BMW. However, it's an LLL. It's an LLL model. So therefore, I have to actually make an adjustments. Like, based on this, I can look that LLL model is actually 5% more expensive than than my XSX price. Therefore, I take the LLL model, adjust it, and sell my XSX model at the particular price. So what we do at level 2 is that we take a price of a similar substance, a similar item, similar asset. We take it, and then we make adjustments. And number 3 is the most unreliable one, in which there is no active market, there is no quoted price, there is nothing we can find. However, what we can find is something called value in use, in which we are actually predicting cash flow that is going to come. So that thing is actually called the income approach. That thing is called the income approach. So, as I said before, the market approach, we look at the market, we look at how much of this is selling, or how much is this car selling, how much is this door selling, how much is this towel selling, and then cost approach, in which that we find the cost of that particular item that is sold somewhere else, and then we have to make a few adjustments simply because it does not define the true value of our asset. And then income approach, in which we are making present value of the future cash flow. So that is practically all about fair value measurement. Lastly, is about the disclosure, in which that what do we need to disclose? We have to understand the valuation techniques, we have to understand the effects of fair value measurement, we have to actually understand that fair value measurement is required at reporting date. I have an excellent example for that, in which alright, Sandy Ltd measures in investment in Blue Chip Ltd shares at fair value. Blue Chip shares are listed and actively traded on stock exchange. Which of these following valuations should Sandy use to measure its investment in shares in blue chip in its financial statement of 30th June 20X? So when we look at questions like this in determining the fair value of an asset, of an investment, we have to look at first three things. Is it an asset? Is it a liability? We get it is an investment. Investment, it's an asset. Now, is it a sole asset or is it a group of assets? It is an investment in blue chip. So therefore, this particular point, it is an asset. So when there is an asset, we do not have any other characteristics to check. So after we go asset, a fair value, and then are listed and actively traded on the stock exchange. So therefore, we can determine that we can actually say that it has a principal market. So then it has a principal market. So now let's go to step 4. Step 4 is the valuation technique and the fair value hierarchy. So step 1, step 2, step 3. What is this? Is this a step 1 method? Is this a step 2 method? Or is this a step 3 method in defining the fair value? So when we look at this, we can actually say that is number 1, we can say that is number 1, the market approach. The market approach simply because there is an active market. So what we need to do, remember, in which that we have to take the amount of the item being traded at market value at the date, at the commencement date, which is the date that we are doing the report. So when this question arises, we look at the question, which are one of the valuations and used to measure its investment in shares. Closing price of blue chip shares simply because it ends at the June 20X3. So average price is wrong because we do not take average price in any of our methods. Number 3 is wrong because estimate derived from model that use observable industry growth. Again, this is none of the methods. And number 3, D, estimate derived from model that use and this estimate of blue chips future profit. This is income approach. We should only use D when there is no market, when there is no active market, and when there is no other close reliable stock exchange. Like for instance, blue chip has another company called yellow chip. So if we are selling yellow chip at particular price, we can take yellow price chip and then make some adjustment based on the valuation of the company, and that will fall to step 2. However, when we cannot do step 2, then we should take the estimate derived from the model that uses Sandy's estimate, that we use the future profit. So now that is practically all for the entire IFRS 13. It is very short. It is an extremely short topic. However, it is very broad in sense because simply the fair value hierarchy is so big. So let's actually do some questions. Oh, before I forgot, let's know the advantages and disadvantages. On the left is advantages, on the right is disadvantages. So what is the advantages of fair value measurement? It is considered by many to be more relevant than cost-based measures, which that is extremely true. Now you have to understand that, remember the car example that I used, in which that we have a car, the entry method, the entry price was 10,000. We depreciate every year. How do we, and then we are not actually calculating the value if we refurbished it. We are not calculating the value if we have done more maintenance on it. Like, it is not reliable. However, if we use fair value measurement, if we use IFRS 13, if we use the exit price of every single point of time, of every single commencement time, of every single reporting time that we are selling it, we can always get it at the price that everyone else is getting. Because getting the value that every price in the market is getting. IFRS 13 establishes hierarchy for the measure of fair value. Yep. Now, what are the disadvantages of IFRS 13? The lack of relevance, in which that, let's just say that we are doing level 3 for all this, lack of relevance in decision making, in which that reliability problems, for the second part, reliability problems. How are we sure that cash flow is going to come for level 3? Like, how are we certain that particular cash flow is going to come every single year? Like, that is, like, we cannot say that for sure. Like, one day the car might go down, it may no longer have the same value and whatnot. So number 1, lack of relevance to decision making. So what is the point of having a fair value measurement when we are not actually going to sell the item? Now, that is the disadvantage. So it's a waste of money, it's a waste of
energy, it's a waste of company's time trying to determine the fair value of all its assets, in which that we are not actually doing anything with it. So those are the advantages and disadvantages. So let's dive into some questions before we wrap up this topic. So question number one. Which of the following will be considered level 3 input? Remember what's level 3 input? Level 1 input is market, level 2 is cost, and level 3 is income. Warehouse, whose price per square foot is derived from price in observed transaction involving similar warehouse in similar locations too. So what is this? We try to look at the keywords. Similar warehouse. Similar warehouse, that means it is a step 2, level 2 hierarchy in the fair value method. And 2, a quoted stock price in item market. That is a clear level 1. Level 1 says that we do not make any changes. We just take the value, we just take the price of our item that is being sold or traded somewhere else. We have a car, we have a BMW XK. Someone is selling BMW XK at the price of 200,000. So we sell the price at 200,000. We do not make any adjustment. So which that they are considered level 3 income approach? Neither. Which of the following measures fair value uses price and other relevant information from identical or comparable transaction? Market or income. So as I said before, uses price and other information from identical or comparable. So the answer is actually market and cost approach. However, here there is no cost approach stated. So therefore, we only take market approach. Last questions. Which of the following correct translation of fair value model of an asset? It includes transportation cost if location is an attribute to the asset. Fair value is an entity-based measure rather than by measure. Okay, for number 2, why is number 2 wrong? In which that fair value is an entity-based measure rather than market-based measure. Entity-based measure is another term for historical cost. It's another term for entry cost. It's another term for historical cost, in which that we buy the asset as XX amount at XX date. That is entity-based. Market-based is the fair value measurement. So it includes transportation cost if location is attributed to the asset. So that is correct, simply because remember what we said before. Transaction cost is 5 in trying to find out the most advantageous market. So that is all for IFRS 13 fair value measurement. But let's do a bit of a recap. So what is fair value measurement? To define, to calculate, to know how to calculate, to write the framework to calculate the fair value of an asset or liability, to base it on the most principal market, and then to use the valuation technique on the principal or the most advantageous market, in which we do not forget that it does not include IFRS 2, IFRS 16, IFRS 2, which they have their own standards. So that is all from me. Thank you so much for listening, and peace. Assalamualaikum.